In the opening of the film, we find a girl named Rasa concealed within a cave, where she remains for 2 long days. From that vantage point, she observes as a plane descends onto the runway and the president emerges. With unwavering focus, she lines up her shot with a sniper rifle and pulls the trigger. She picks up the bullet casing and holds on to it tightly. At that moment, a boy named Levi sits quietly, pen in hand, crafting a poem in his notebook. Suddenly, a message arrives, summoning him to a base. He swiftly departs and reaches an enormous military base, where he encounters an officer named Bat. The officer inquires about his background, noting that both his father and grandfather served as Marine snipers, and that he follows in their footsteps as one as well. She inquires whether the rumors about Levi having killed 200 people are indeed true. Levi coolly responds that he has taken far more lives than that. Following his retirement, Levi engaged in private contracts. However, he presently holds no commitments. Despite being always willing to collaborate with the Marines, he turns down any proposals after a military psychologist declared him unfit for duty. He stands in solitude without a girlfriend, without family, without anyone to care for him. Levi steers clear of all substances, fully aware that they might jeopardize his precision. He could have challenged the psychologist's decision, but he finds no reason to do so, nor does he see much value in anything else. On the other side, Razan encounters her father, Will, and shares the news that she has successfully completed the mission. Will's face beams with pride as she presents him with the bullet casing. She acknowledges that the memory of the shot continues to haunt her, pressing heavily on her thoughts. Will reassures her, saying that's why he always takes the bullet casing from her, to help her let go. She then tells him that she will be departing for another mission, one that will last a year, and assures him that she will see him afterward. Will nods, showing his understanding. They exchange a fleeting glance before going their separate ways. The following day, Levi finds himself aboard a plane, preparing for his mission. He leaps, parachuting gracefully into a thick, lush forest. After an exhausting 6-hour trek, he finally arrives at his destination, where he encounters a man named JD. The man greets him, a wave of relief washing over him at the sight of another person after an entire year. Hand in hand, they make their way to the towering structure ahead. JD clarifies that the tower is completely outfitted and that Levi will be assigned there for the upcoming year. As Levi gazes at another tower in the distance, JD informs him that someone else is stationed there too, performing the same task. However, he makes it clear that Levi is not to communicate with the other guard. His sole responsibility is to oversee his designated area. Levi glanced down and inquired about what lay beneath them. JD responded that the location was referred to as the Door of Hell, a profound chasm where innumerable monsters lay confined. That is the reason it had been under observation for years. Each week, they were required to check in with a company via radio to ensure their safety. Supplies such as food and weapons will be provided. However, it was essential to inspect the weapons every 2 days. Should any monster manage to escape, it must be dealt with right away. Intrigued, Levi inquired about how JD had acquired all this knowledge. JD shared that the former Watcher had informed him, and that this operation had been ongoing for many years. The location was an enormous secret, so cleverly concealed that even presidents had no knowledge of its existence. Jammers were put in place to ensure that no signals could escape, effectively keeping the location entirely off the radar. Beneath the trench, even more jammers awaited, and if they were destroyed, the entire place would come crashing down in just 2 minutes. The trench was known as Gaska, and it needed to stay safeguarded and concealed for a whole year. Levi took in every detail, while JD guided him through the weapons and security protocols. The following day, JD was airlifted by helicopter. His identity was confirmed, yet soon after, he faced execution. News of his passing traveled back. Meanwhile, Levi remained at the tower, diligently monitoring all systems on a regular basis. Each day, he meticulously checked the jammers and weapons, making sure everything was in perfect working order. Levi kept in touch with the company via radio, but their conversations were strictly focused on work-related topics. One day, while watching the other tower, he spotted something out of the ordinary. The tower's walls bore the names and reflections of those who had come before, each one an ex-Marine officer, just like him. The operation had been ongoing since 1940, with new officers arriving and departing regularly. One day, as Levi was surveying the area, he noticed a figure standing in the distance. A voice echoed from the opposite tower, and he suddenly realized there was a girl stationed there. She appeared to take notice of him as well. That night, Levi jolted awake from a troubling dream, his heart pounding in his chest. He glanced out the window and noticed the lights glowing in the adjacent tower. With his binoculars in hand, he watched the girl, who was solitary, much like himself. She seemed equally uninterested. 2 weeks later, Raza was joyfully celebrating her birthday. As she caught sight of Levi in the distance, she chose to shatter the stillness. She penned a note on a sheet of paper. Levi saw that Raza had sent a message inquiring about his name and noted that it was her birthday. She mentioned that for just one night, she would set aside the rules and do as she pleased. Levi experienced a thrilling surge of excitement and promptly shared his name. As the two became completely immersed in the moment as the effects took hold, Raza burst into song and dance, playfully encouraging Levi to join in the fun. He paused, confessing that he was quite the awful dancer. She shattered the bottle and dared him to demonstrate his shooting prowess. Levi complied, but as Raza, still under the influence, entered his view, he swiftly lowered his weapon. In an instant, Raza came to a standstill, her gaze fixed on the trench beneath her. Something was on the horizon. Levi turned his eyes to where she was looking and beheld terrifying creatures rising from the shadows. Half-human, half-monster entities emerging from the shadows. Without a moment's pause, Levi unleashed his firepower, and the creatures continued to advance. A tremendous explosion erupted in a nearby mine, propelling more of them to the surface. Understanding they were outnumbered, Levi and Raza fought with unwavering determination, utilizing every weapon they could find. Yet amidst the turmoil, a creature invaded her tower. She barely managed to take it down, but soon more creatures began to swarm around her. Levi noticed the threat and swiftly seized a machine gun, unleashing a barrage of bullets upon the creatures assaulting Raza's tower. Suddenly, another explosion shook the area, leaving Raza injured. Levi continued to shoot, determined not to allow any monster to approach. As the monsters continued to surge forward, the automated defense system sprang to life, unleashing a barrage of heavy fire from above. The night transformed into a battleground, with machines launching their unyielding attack, eliminating the creatures one after another. Raza, witnessing the devastation, fell to the ground, overwhelmed by fatigue and anguish. As dawn broke, Raza awoke and began to care for her injuries. She smiled weakly and whispered, "That was the best birthday I've ever had." Levi, having been awake all night, erupted into laughter at the sheer absurdity of it all. A few hours later, he descended to fix the jammers and strengthen the trench barriers, determined to keep the monsters at bay. Raza, now fully alert, maintained her vigil over him with her sniper rifle, poised to provide cover if necessary. As time went by, December made its entrance, accompanied by a blanket of heavy snowfall. Raza, feeling increasingly restless from the solitude, gazed out at the white expanse when something unusual caught her eye. Outside, Levi had beautifully arranged a Christmas tree just for them. A comforting sensation enveloped her as she beamed for the first time in ages. That night, they joyfully celebrated together, crafting snowmen for one another. As the days went on, they discovered new ways to fill their time, playing chess, exchanging stories, and gradually drawing nearer, even with the space that separated their towers. 2 months later, February came, bringing with it a cascade of endless nightmares. The eerie sounds of monsters echoing from the trench haunted Levi, rendering sleep utterly impossible. On a frigid night, he ventured outside only to find Raza sitting alone, appearing more desolate than ever. She finally spoke. "I feel so alone. I really wish you were here with me." Upon hearing those words, Levi resolved to take action. He was making his way to her, yet traversing the gap between their towers seemed almost insurmountable. The following day, Levi retrieved a bazooka missile from their arsenal, carefully extracted all the gunpowder, and secured it with a rope. Raza observed as Levi launched the grenade from the bazooka, propelling the missile across the distance, only for it to become lodged in a tree. Raza swiftly extinguished the flames and secured the rope with precision. A few hours later, Levi came back, planning to make his way across by hanging from the rope. However, because the rope was taut, he found himself stuck in the middle and had to use his hands to navigate his way across. Upon reaching the other side, the rope greeted him, leading to an unexpectedly awkward moment between them. Raza then mentioned she had made rabbit pie for dinner. Levi complimented her green eyes, saying they were beautiful. Raza recommended that he take a bath, as he had been sweating quite a bit. Afterward, Levi returned from the bath, only to discover that his clothes had been placed at a distance. He strolled over, completely unclothed, and when Raza caught sight of him through the camera, she burst into laughter. Later, they gathered to share a meal, swapping tales about their experiences as snipers. Levi shared that he discovered, amidst the snow and chill of Christmas, that they were situated in the Northside Forest of America. Raza was truly impressed and couldn't help but praise Levi's exceptional sharpshooting skills. Levi playfully teased, asking if she could guess his thoughts. Raza, quick on her feet, shot back with a cheeky question of her own. Levi chuckled and mentioned that he was also pondering other matters, such as the reality of this place and the nature of those monsters. Raza revealed that her ex-partner, a sniper, had a way of making her feel drawn to him, even though she always carried the weight of sadness from taking lives. He advised her not to linger on it and to concentrate solely on her work. Levi expressed a comparable feeling, yet he admitted he could never erase the memory of his first kill. A woman whose aspirations continued to haunt him. He confessed that his solitude was the reason he had arrived here. That night, they stepped inside and began to dance together. Raza praised Levi, remarking that he wasn't a bad dancer at all. Levi replied, "Perhaps." Levi replied, "It's possible." And then they kissed, drawing nearer to one another. By morning, they were both incredibly happy together. As Levi was departing, they shared another kiss before he went on his journey. Yet an explosion from the mines resulted in the rope snapping, sending Levi plummeting into the gorge, still strapped into his parachute. With unwavering resolve, Raza seized the gun and parachute, then leaped into the gorge herself. She deployed the parachute at the perfect moment, splashing down into the water. In spite of the powerful current, she successfully navigated her way down. Meanwhile, Levi dangled from a tree, his eyes widening as a monstrous figure drew near. He fired his pistol, bringing it down. Suddenly, another monster emerged, seizing him from beneath the tree. Raza arrived just in time, firing at the monster and liberating him. Levi, taken aback, inquired, "You followed me all the way here?" Raza simply replied, "You would have done the same." They pressed on, only to be suddenly ambushed by monstrous figures atop their steeds. They were briefly taken aback, but soon launched a counterattack. One monster fled, and Levi noticed their uniforms, coming to the realization that they were officers from the 1940s. This made him suspect that this place was likely constructed after 1940, and the soldiers there had turned into monsters. They continued forward and unexpectedly discovered a forsaken, crumbling city. In their desperate search for refuge from the lurking monsters, they stumbled into a church only to be met with the haunting sight of numerous lifeless bodies. The markings on their hands revealed that these individuals had taken their own lives, yet the reasons behind such actions remain a mystery to them. At that moment, creatures resembling spiders launched their attack. They battled valiantly, but more creatures emerged. They fought their way through, creating an explosion to break free. As they hurried away, they spotted a door concealed beneath a mountain. With unwavering resolve, they stepped inside. As they ventured further, they uncovered that the location was a laboratory. Inside, numerous scientists were engrossed in their experiments, completely oblivious to the deadly fate that awaited them. Raza spotted a generator and took the initiative to start it, which triggered a video to play. A scientist named Maya appeared in the footage, explaining that the video was from 1946, when Robert Oppenheimer was working on the atomic bomb for America. Simultaneously, they were assigned a responsibility of creating biochemical weapons. They achieved their goal, but then an earthquake hit, obliterating their weapons and unleashing a toxic gas into the atmosphere. This led to mutations in humans, animals, and plants, transforming them into terrifying monsters. Upon recognizing the threat, they took swift action to seal off the lab. Leva and Raza finally grasped the reason behind the government's secrecy regarding the location. Leva expressed that they had to discover a means of escape. They then stumbled upon an ancient computer from the year 2000, owned by a military company named Turk Lake, which had a significant part in leading them to this moment. It quickly became clear that Dark Lake, another organization, had already dispatched individuals to this lab. As they delved into the computer files, they discovered that Dark Lake had been conducting experiments on numerous Drasas, aiming to develop super soldiers. In 1940, it was revealed that this location was meant to be obliterated by a nuclear missile. Yet astonishingly, it was never launched. Once the lab was sealed off with GMR, the missile stayed put. Yet with the destruction of GMR, the entire Gorge would be obliterated by the missile, guaranteeing that the truth would remain hidden from the outside world. Leva then carefully reviewed the information about the monsters, discovering that the effects of the nuclear bomb would extend up to 4.2 kilometers away, a crucial detail to keep in mind. As Leva and Raza were preparing to depart, Leva remarked, "If I can't make it out with you, just know that I truly enjoyed our time together." They exchanged a kiss before resuming their flight. Leva added, "If anyone else comes here, they must have left a way up." They pushed ahead, seeking an escape route. Out of nowhere, the horse-riding monsters secured a rope around Raza and started to pull her away. Leva pursued them and quickly discovered that the monster had dragged Raza down to a lower level, where it subjected her to torment. The monster lunged to take her life, yet Raza bravely fought back and succeeded in freeing herself. They fought valiantly, but the creature hurled Raza aside and was poised to strike a deadly blow. Just in the nick of time, Leva showed up and took down a monster. Leva and Raza experienced a wave of relief and joy as they reunited once more. Leva realized that this creature was the very same one that had served as the initial guardian of the tower way back in the 1940s. Leva and Raza pressed on in their ascent, moving past a colossal tree adorned with countless slumbering creatures. With careful steps, they aimed to steer clear of causing any disturbance. However, Raza inadvertently stepped on one, causing it to awaken. As the monster seized Raza, Leva sprang into action, launching a swift attack. But in that moment, the other monsters stirred, awakening and encircling them menacingly. In a state of panic, they triggered a massive explosion that annihilated all the monsters in the vicinity, paving the way for their continued ascent. They quickly discovered a garage brimming with vehicles, crafted to assist them in scaling the mountain. Leva discovered that ropes had been set up from the tower to hoist the vehicles up. The two of them jumped into a truck, and as they approached the hill, monsters began to chase after them. The individuals managing the ropes were vanquishing the monsters, and then they secured the truck to a rope, gradually hoisting it up the hill. After several hours, they had ascended to a significant height, but soon the monsters started to climb the rope in pursuit. Leva and Raza battled valiantly, taking down numerous monsters in their path. Leva then soaked them in gasoline and ignited an explosion, hurling the remaining monsters down the hill. As they kept climbing, suspended from the vehicle, they finally reached a higher point. Once they were far enough away, they severed the rope, sending the truck plummeting down. After several more hours of climbing, they finally reached the tower, both deeply unsettled by the truth they had uncovered. Raza then suggested, "We should run away from here. I've discovered a hidden gem in France, a secret spot where we can escape and be completely undisturbed." Raza agreed to Leva's plan, fully aware that if they fell victim to the mutations, they would transform into monsters within 5 days. They chose to wait and observe whether they were immune. If they weren't, they would flee. As they parted ways, Leva confessed, "I love you," Raza replied. "I love you too." The following day, Leva reached out to Bat via the radio. Bat inquired if all was well, and Leva offered her reassurance. Bat noted that the computer in the tower below had been turned on, while Leva firmly denied having gone there. Bat firmly asserted that the watchmen of the tower must have descended and emphasized that they would never put their research at risk. The next day, Leva and Raza were examining some machines when they noticed a helicopter approaching them, which was quite unusual. They swiftly escaped, while Bat observed from the tower, commanding drones to track them down and eliminate them. Leva and Raza skillfully employed their sniper rifles to eliminate the drones. As they ascended, Leva caught sight of Bat in the tower. He strategically planted explosives to take out the approaching guards, and one by one they fell. Bat understood that her plans were unraveling, and she made the choice to obliterate the location to keep the truth from surfacing. She initiated a nuclear bomb set to obliterate the area in just 2 minutes. They sprinted towards the helicopter, racing 4.2 kilometers away from the blast zone. They reached safety. Just as they were escaping, the missile launched, resulting in a massive explosion in the gorge. The explosion struck the helicopter and Bat, while Leva couldn't get away in time. He was caught in a blast, falling into the water and sinking deeper into the depths. Raza, having traveled 4.2 kilometers, witnessed the explosion and sought refuge in a cave for 5 days. It didn't take long for her to understand that the mutations had no impact on her. Afterward, Raza journeyed to France, filled with hope of finding Leva, yet he was nowhere to be found. Instead, she discovered a letter from him in which he had completed his poem for her. Raza, filled with sorrow from losing Leva, took a job as a waitress in a bustling restaurant. To her astonishment, she spotted Leva there. He ordered rabbit leg, and they shared a delightful reunion, echoing the joy of their first encounter. Leva shared that it took him a while to bounce back from his previous job, but now he was eager to collaborate with her. Raza shared that the chef's position was available in the kitchen, and they kissed, concluding the beautiful story with a feeling of fresh starts.